blue-red Scryland, but as it stands, kind of a fringe player in the format. It's very punishing towards cheap creature strategies, and then you see that alongside creatures like Sylvan Caryatid, Scavenging Ooze, Courser of Crewfix, a very challenging skeleton for Kent's small red-black aggro deck to push through.
The big thing I wanted to see here was who was going to be on the play, and it is Ketter. He leads off with a Temple of Malice. He needs to get the ball rolling very quickly with a 2-drop, be it Thrill Kill Assassin or Spite Jester will be the 2/3 with Unleash. Arnold just plays a Temple of Abandon. We'll see if he has an Accelerant to play on turn 2, an Elvish Mystic, or perhaps a Sylvan Caryatid. The card that Ketter has to probably be the most scared of course, is Courser of Crewfix.
Yeah. And this is part of the incentive to play black-red aggro in my mind, is the 2-drop slot matches up very well against Sylvan Caryatid. You get both Spite Jester and Thrill Kill Assassin, neither of which Sylvan Caryatid can block.
Yeah, and you do see that interaction show up right away here. Arnold's going to have to go down to 18, can't afford to block with his 0-3. Ketter just has to pass the turn back. He's got a pretty nice hand. A couple copies of Dreadbore, a Herald of Torment that I'm sure he would have loved to play that turn, and an Xava Rakdos Blood Witch. Arnold does have the Courser, so let's take a look at the top card. It's a Steam Vents.
And if Kent didn't know what he was playing against, that Steam Vents has to throw him for a loop.
Yeah, he's probably got a better idea now as there's a top card. It's a Mountain Courser, really helping with the lands here. Arnold going to go up to 19. Ketter will take a draw step. It's a copy of Blood Crypt.
Big draw here as it gives him access to 2 Dreadbores in a turn or Xava the Blood Witch.
Okay. He's going to go with Dreadbore here. Does have a Lightning Strike. He's going to play this untapped. Ketter likely going to come across for 2 points of damage. Arnold going to go down to 17, and that Dreadbore will be at the ready for the next big threat that Christopher Arnold does play. As Chris does draw that mountain that we all knew about. He does have an Aetherling in his hand. Looks like he may have a Mizium Mortars hanging out over there as well. But we're going to start with the mountain into a copy of Stormbreath Dragon.
And everything that Christopher does in this matchup, once he has his mana and mana accelerants online, is really challenging for aggro decks to beat.
Yeah. Now, Kent, of course, decided to take 2 points of damage playing that Blood Crypt on tap. Could have just played it tapped and moved about his turn with the thought of maybe I'll get to Lightning Strike something, but he did not. Now, this Lightning Strike, however, could just go upstairs.
Yeah, and that's actually, I do like this play a lot from Kent because his mana is accounted for likely the next 2 turns with Xava and a bestowed Herald of Torment. So this might be his only chance to efficiently land that Lightning Strike.
Let's see if it's going to be Xava time or is it going to be Dreadbore plus Magma Jet time. Is it time to race or is it time to, kill some creatures and manipulate a little bit? He decides it's time to race. Xava unleashed. Let's get in for 6. Arnold's going to go down to 8.
Yeah, and Kent can't win this game in the long term, so he's got to try to win it in the short term.
Arnold's going to untap those lands. He's going to take a draw step. It's a Domri Raid. Domri not the best in this board position, as the Stormbreath Dragon is going to come into the red zone. Ketter's going to go down to 10. Domri can fight the creatures that are in play. That's not all that exciting, as here's a Mizium Mortars to take down the Xava. Follow this up with another Mizium Mortars to take down the Thrill Kill Assassin and an Elvish Mystic, so a really, really nice turn there.
A great turn for Christopher, blunting all of Kent's offense, also developing his mana further, getting himself into a position where he may be able soon to play something like Aetherling.
Jet on upkeep here from Kent, going to take down the Elvish Mystic. I would be a little surprised that doesn't go upstairs, but one on top, one on bottom. Ketter will draw a card. It's a Blood Crypt. Does he have any interest in Dreadboring here? It looks like he does. So Dreadbore's going to take care of the dragon. Ketter's going to pass the turn back. Arnold's going to untap.
And Christopher's done a successful job of taking all the wind out of Kent's sails. Christopher's been missing land drops too, so Kent has to know there's a bunch of spells in hand. So this is going to probably be a real uphill battle for Kent unless he finds some of his high impact cards like Stormbreath Dragon very quickly.
There's a Domri. That's going to come into play. It's going to tick up, reveals a Xenagos. Obviously not going to come into play. That's a copy of Elvish Mystic. Pass it back. Ketter's going to draw a Blood Crypt. He's going to follow this up with a Herald of Torment before passing the turn back here. Chris is going to untap. He's going to take a draw. There is the Xenagos.
Although it's worth noting that Chris isn't quite out of the woods yet. And Kent's deck does have some range. He also has copies of Stormbreath Dragon he can draw off the top.
Wow, he does fight there. That could have ended up being really, really bad for Chris. If Ketter does have Bile Blight in his deck, it's an absolute nightmare. But it does work out as there's another copy of Herald of Torment for Ketter.
It's really hard to put Kent on playing Bile Blight in his list because he needs to play cards like Dreadbore as Universal Answers, and then the rest of his removal likely has to be filled out with burn spells because he's an aggressive deck. So even though it's not impossible for Kent to have Bile Blight in that situation, I do like Chris electing not to play around it as it just doesn't quite add up given the rest of the cards that Kent has played in the first game.
You can see Ketter draw that Herald of Torment and concede the game. So Christopher Arnold, with his top 8 dreams on the line, does win game number 1. We'll move over to the sideboards here. We'll start by taking a look at Ketter's, and because you are the red maestro, I'll let you take it away.
An Erebos, God of the Dead, a Stormbreath Dragon, 2 Dark Betrayals, 3 Doomblades, 3 Mizium Mortars, 4 Skullcracks. I have to imagine the additional spot removal is going to be coming in, the Doomblades and the Mizium Mortars. Being able to kill Courser of Crufix is really critical for Kent for a variety of reasons. A 2/4 is a great blocker in this matchup. Also, the life gain and the land drops matter quite a bit as well. I also think he wants to bring in the additional copy of Stormbreath Dragon to give him some additional reach. There is some temptation to bring in Skullcrack, as Kent's the beatdown deck in the matchup, and Courser of Crufix and potentially other life gain effects like Scavenging Ooze exist as well. But I think he needs to focus much more about playing to the board, getting off to an early advantage, and then using kill spells to prevent Christopher from getting to his more expensive stuff. I don't think this is a pure burn matchup.
Other side of things here for Arnold, he's got 1 Rurik Thar the Unbowed, 3 copies of Turn and Burn, 2 Syncopates, 2 copies of Pithing Needle, 3 Negates, a Mizium Mortars, and 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra. Not a lot of cards here in his sideboard that are trying to fix the hyper-aggressive matchups, but a couple of them are pretty nice, and 3 Turn and Burns. So that card obviously has a lot of functionality in this particular matchup. Removal spell, if he does get to fuse it, it'll take down some of the bigger cards like an Exava or Stormbreath Dragon. And the 1 Mizium Mortars, we saw Mizium Mortars be used to great effect there. It's basically just a 2-mana removal spell. Plays the role of Doomblade.
Yeah, and even though Turn Burn isn't at its best against hyper-aggressive decks, Kent is going higher up the curve, which makes Turn Burn a little bit more attractive. Additionally, Chris has some easy cuts in his deck. He has 2 copies of Sylvan Primordial. Even the Aetherling feels a little bit too slow for this kind of matchup, even though it was reasonably powerful in the first game. So Chris has some easy additions to make his deck a little bit more streamlined without diluting the power too much. Again, once he stabilizes the board, Christopher can win fairly easily behind cards like Xenagos the Reveler and Ral Zarek. So all he needs to be concerning himself with is stabilizing the early board, making sure his life total stays fairly high, and then he can win the game with some of his medium impact cards. He doesn't need to go all the way up to Sylvan Primordial or Aetherling to outclass the threats that Kent's bringing to the table.
See both players shuffling up here. Ketter will be on the play here for game number 2. Again, we've got 3 players who have locked things up for top 8. Joe Lissette, Tom Ross, and Jared Betcher. 3 names that you're probably quite familiar with. And a bunch of people out here in the top of the standings looking to make a name for themselves, up to and including Christopher Arnold here, who is up a game with his Rug Monsters deck, a deck that coming into this tournament, especially on the standard side of things, I'm sure we did not expect to see.
No, and actually this is the second Rug Monsters list we've had on camera this weekend. Day 1 we had Christopher Yarborough in a totally different shell was playing one as well. Christopher's built a little bit more streamlined, and I am a big fan of Ral Zarek in this metagame, as there are a lot of aggressive decks floating around, and Ral Zarek is very punishing on those strategies.
Adrian Sullivan writing about this Rug Monsters deck this week on Star City Games on the Select side, so if you do want to check that out, feel free. But Christopher Arnold obviously using this to great effect. Ketter going to start off with a Rakdos Cackler here unleashed. He's got a 2/2 on turn 1. Arnold with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic, a big play here for him.
Yeah, Kent's already got to be a little annoyed by the pacing of the matchup here. He doesn't have a way to kill that Elvish Mystic, and it might set the stage for Christopher to just accelerate out threats that are too fast.
Spy Jester going to trade, so that's kind of a way to get the job done. I mean, certainly good enough. As getting Elvish Mystic off the table, I think is very important for Ketter. And here's the Temple of Abandon, so no ramping, even though Arnold is looking at a copy of Sylvan Carriage. I wonder if he wants to keep that, and he does not. There's another copy of Elvish Mystic.
And now you see why Christopher blocked last turn. He has a backup Accelerant. He can still get to 4 mana next turn if his draw works out the right way.
I wonder if Ketter has another removal spell. He's going to play Temple of Malice, deciding where he wants to go with this. He's going to say, let's get into the red zone.
Kent is an entertainingly expressive player.
I agree 100%. That's why I love watching him do battle. Arnold, what do you want to do? You're going to tap 3 mana. This seems like it might be a Courser here. Could be a Domri as well. And it will be the Planeswalker.
If you're Kent, you got to be breathing a sigh of relief here, as Courser or Crufix would be brutal.
Yeah, Stormbreath Dragon going to come to the grip. Arnold does have a land as his team vents tap, pass the turn back. Ketter will take a draw. He kept this card on top. It's another copy of Temple of Malice. So that'll come in. I'm really interested to see exactly where this Rakdos Cackler is going to go. Top card's going to go to the bottom from the scry.
I would be surprised if this did not go at Domri, as he has Herald Torment in his hand next turn. Assuming Domri takes up to 3, the Herald can finish it off the following turn. And I feel like Christopher is simply too high for Kent to be going directly at the face. This Domri is going to add up to a lot of removal spells.
Well, Ketter disagrees. He says, I'm going right towards you, thank you very much. And does not play the Herald of Torment this turn, thinking that he would much rather bestow.
It's interesting to me that he would go down that path, because he does have several Stormbreath Dragons in his hand, so he has stuff to do once he hits 5 mana. So I do understand on the other side of it that it's very easy for Christopher to block a Rakdos Cackler with nearly anything his deck produces. So there's some argument in keeping the Herald of Torment in your hand so you can make the Rakdos Cackler into a real threat. But I do feel like Kent might be setting his tempo back a little bit too far here because his 5 mana slots are accounted for the next couple of turns.
Yeah, you know, what I think Kent is doing here is he's leaving mana up to say, hey, I've got a removal spell, so you better tread carefully. And I actually kind of like that play. We'll see how it ends up working out, though, for Ketter as he draws a Magma Jet for the turn. The big question now is, does he slam down a Stormbreath Dragon, or does he bestow a Herald of Torment? And he's going to slam down the Dragon, which is the easier play of the two, I think. And now he's going to get in the red zone. Let's see where they're going. He's going to stick with the plan of going to you. Turn that Dragon into an 0-1. Eat that alive. That's a nice play there. That is a really nice play there from Arnold.
Yeah. Incredible way to break serve against Kent's more expensive threats. And we talked about this during sideboard. Turn burn not at its best against most aggressive strategies, but certainly ones going up to 4 and 5 mana threats, it's quite good.
Yeah, here comes the Dragon in the red zone. Ketter going to go down to 16. Stomping Ground going to play tapped. That's going to eat the Rakdos Cackler.
And I love this play from Christopher. Even though that Cackler looks fairly innocuous, Chris has a pretty overwhelming power edge. All he has to concern himself with is preserving his life total.
Yeah. Ketter's going to take a draw. It's a Dreadbore. See if he wants to cast that, or if he wants to play another Dragon this turn, because he can play Dreadbore, take care of your Stormbreath Dragon, and then play Herald of Torment, which, again, is an option that he chose not to take much earlier in the game.
Yeah, this speaks to what I was talking about before, where he has his mana accounted for several turns with the 2 Stormbreath Dragons. So I would have just landed the Herald of Torment for 3 mana when he had that opening.
So he's going to get this off of the table. Now here's the Herald of Torment, a couple of turns late to the party, potentially. Arnold's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. He's going to tick up, so that means the Herald's going to live. Mizzium Mortars is the top card of his deck. Again, we know that, but Ketter does not, even though Ketter did see 2 copies of Mizzium Mortars in the last game.
Looks like Christopher's got a fairly soft hand at this point. Some lands and additional Domri that's not providing a lot.
And he just passes the turn back over to Ketter, who's going to take a draw. It's a Blood Crypt. Will he cast the Dragon this turn?
Yeah, I mean, he has to respect the possibility of Mizzium Mortars next turn, especially with Christopher leaving a card on top of his deck.
Things get really interesting here, too, though, Patrick, because he can play the Dragon, he can get in the red zone, put Arnold down to 5, and then he's got a Jet that can put him down to 3. The other tough thing here, though, is, you know, where's this Dragon going? He's been saying you the entire time. Now he's switching a little bit. Now he's switching plans. He's, all right, I'm going to take down your Domri and deal you 3 points of damage, put you down to 9. So he's changed game plans a little bit.
Yeah, and I actually like this play a lot because if Christopher does not have Mizzium Mortars, Kent has still an overwhelming edge. And if Christopher does have Mizzium Mortars, then at least you've removed the Domri from the table.
Well, Arnold, pretty easy play here. There's an overload of Mizzium Mortars. Let's get those creatures off of the table. So, a little 2-for-1 action there. Let's see if the Elvish Mystic's going to come in. Arnold knows that Spike Jester is looming in this deck.
And what's the 1 point of damage really worth?
Yeah, the answer is not going to do that. Now Ketter's got a Magma Jet on upkeep. He's going to go upstairs with that. So now Arnold goes down to 7. Ketter looking at 2 cards, a Doomblade and a Magma Jet. And this is a really hard scry.
Yeah, I still feel like it's worth keeping Magma Jet here because you can basically reset the turn that you just had and deal 2 more points of damage essentially for free, assuming Christopher's light on action, which he likely is. I don't think you can afford to keep Doomblade here.
He is going to keep Doomblade. That's his top card. Magma Jet's the next card. So, Bulkier comes into play, tap. Ketter passes the turn back over to Arnold. Arnold draws a copy of Mizzium Mortars, and Kent might be on the plan of, I have to do burn damage to get the job done. There's a Domri. That's going to take up to 4. Stormbreath Dragon is the draw.
And
Will Arnold play a land untapped here?
Christopher elected not to play a land untapped last turn. He actually kept both in his hand, and now this is happening.
I was a little curious about that. He's just going to play Stomping Ground tap and pass the turn back. Ketter's going to draw a Magma Jet for the turn to go along with that Doomblade. Again, I want to see if Ketter's going to shift roles or not. Maybe go Magma Jetting something else. Elvish Mystic comes rolling off the top here for Arnold.
I think with Kent right now, the die has been cast. I don't think he can really afford too much to contain Christopher's board outside of using Doomblades and such on the largest threats. He has to keep the burn spells to try to finish off Christopher.
There's a Stormbreath. Into the red zone we go. There's the Doomblade. Get that thing off the table. Elvish Mystic going to show up here. Arnold, will he play a land or not? He's counting. He's not played one just yet. There's his Steam Vents. He passes it back. Ketter Magma Jet in the grip. Will he cast it? If so, where's it going?
I think, well, it's certainly not that much utility to kill one of the Elvish Mystics, and I don't think that he can fight Domri anymore, so it's just got to be a Christopher.
Thrill Kill Assassin, Blood Crypt, blech. Don't love either one of those.
I'm curious to see how much burn Ken has actually left in this deck. Lightning Strike is generally pretty poor against green-red monsters. It doesn't kill Courser, obviously doesn't kill Caryatid. He's in a spot now where he could really use a burn spell, but if I was in Ken's position, Lightning Strike would be one of the first cards that came out of my deck, so it's not clear how much is left.
Thrill Kill Assassin with Unleash. Take a look at the top cards, the Temple of Mystery. So Domri's not providing a ton of fuel. I believe Arnold has a removal spell in his hand, but he might not need to use this right now. Looks like he's rearranging some mana to consider using it, but Elvish Mystics can be chump blocking duty. They're not really doing very much else. Just going to pass the turn back. I actually like that play a lot there.
Yeah, if he has Mortars in hand, there's a lot of upside for him waiting for Ken to play such a second threat. He's actually fairly close to having to being able to get to Ultimate Domri in this spot too, so Kent needs to add more stuff to the table if he has the option to do so.
Ketter with a third Magma Jet. Here's a Temple of Mystery from Arnold. He's going to leave that card on top. Domri's going up to 7. That means a creature's coming to the hand. That's a Courser, but he's already played his land. So let's see what the top card's going to be. This is a Pool of Chronos. I think we got an idea where Magma Jet's going. The big question here is Arnold going to leave that creature in play? Because he didn't miss any Mortars last turn, but if he leaves this in play, a Herald Torment off the top from the Scry with Bestow is a nightmare, so now he is going to cash in the Mizzing Mortars to get this off of the table.
Stormbreath Dragon also becomes problematic if Ken draws it. Stormbreath Dragon is going to be an issue regardless.
It's just going to be lethal because he's going to go down to 3 from the jet and then lethal for 4 in the air. Yeah. You see Ketter's going to take a look now. What can he do to get himself out of this situation? Knows a Pool of Chronos is coming, knows that a Domri Emblem can be coming, that Courser can gain some life. Ketter, we're going to Domri. 1 and 2, there's a Chandra's Phoenix and a mystery card.
Pretty heartbreaking there for Kent to have to use his Magma Jet in such a fashion.
Yeah, I agree. He feels like that he has to do it though. So now he's going to play a Chandra's Phoenix come across for 3. Arnold's going to go down to 3 with the ability to gain some life if he finds a land for the Courser, but we know we're going to start with Pool of Chronos. That is a Temple of Abandon. That's going to put Arnold up to 4. Let him scry. We'll see the top card. That's a Mizium Mortars.
Curious to see what he wants to do with the Mortars here. In some respects, he just needs to be finding threat cards.
Yeah. We'll see what the top card is now. Steam Vents, but he's already played his land.
I'm also pretty sure that Christopher would even be happy with just drawing more lands at this point, too. Give himself a little more breathing room.
Chronos and Domri are the cards here for Christopher Arnold. There is the World Eater. That thing can get very big, but it's going to eat the Phoenix. That play might not be... Oh, well, I guess... Yeah, he can still Monstrosity it, so he's fine. Okay, yeah, he's still fine.
The big thing is just still presenting lethal next turn, if possible.
On tap here, Ketter will take a draw. Stormbreath gets it done.
Yeah, Stormbreath is still Xaxes.
See what Ketter drew.
Shock and Magma Jet get it done. He gets his Phoenix back.
Yeah. The problem with that, the problem with Shock and Magma Jet is because Pool of Chronos
is still alive, yeah.
Ketter just has to pass the turn back. Arnold's going to tap a boatload of mana. He's got a Steam Vents on top of his deck, so he's going to go to 5 here. Probably play the Breeding Pool off the top instead. So now that's how he's going to go to 5 with that land coming into play tapped.
And 5 is a really important flashpoint here, as it means Stormbreath Dragon is no longer going to kill Christopher.
Another copy of Courser Crewfix off the top. Has not activated Domri just yet. You see, now he's counting the mana to see how much the monstrosity can be for.
He still has to respect the possibility that Ken has Doomblade in hand, as he's already shown it in this game.
So here's the thing. You see an attack here for 7, and Arnold can Monstrosity for 5 if he wants to, but he's choosing not to. Would be a lethal Monstrosity.
Yeah, I mean, now we're playing a game of chicken here where Ken's waiting.
There's the Courser going to go to the grip. Top card's a Temple of Mystery. 3 mana. There is your Courser. Land has already been played for the turn by Arnold. can threaten a monstrosity activation here with Pellegrino still. Ketter's going to draw a card. That's a Mutavault. That's the extension of the hand. Christopher Arnold with Rug Monsters has just clinched top 8.
One of the cooler decks in the tournament, too.
Without question.
Yeah, well, definitely outside the box and making good use of Ral Zarek, which if you compare power level to amount that it's been played, perhaps the most underrepresented card in Standard for the last, 8 months.
I definitely agree with you. For Kent Ketter, being unable to draw after that insane win over Michael Braverman last round, it's got to be tough. Not making the top 8 on this particular weekend. Still having a fantastic year overall in the Open Series and a fantastic season 1, but that just watching that game, and I'm sure he's going to replay that when he does get home, just a little unsure of himself on if he wanted to go straight to the head the entire time, if he wanted to go after Domri, what role he wanted to play over the course of the game. He felt very unsure of himself over that game.
Well, part of the problem is that a lot of his game plans have to fluctuate based on what Christopher is doing. And for example, with the Rakdos Cackler and the Herald of Torment, do you want to bestow or not? The expectation is you probably want to bestow if you can get the game to that point, because Christopher is so good at blocking on the ground, and flyers are very powerful. So I understand the logic there. By the time it was clear that Christopher was light on action, didn't have blockers, it was too late. The window had already closed for him to just simply hard cast the Herald of Torment and get in a lot of damage that way. And at that point, he was just a little too inefficient through the following turns of the game, and Christopher